Hello,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm Sarah.
I'm I'm Dorothy. I take the minutes.
Oh, nice to meet you.
And are you here for a reason or just to watch or what?
Apparently Candace had called me and asked if I would be willing to step in just for a little bit until the end of this term. Because I guess somebody had to leave unexpectedly. So that's
Oh, to be on the board.
yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. How
Well,
long have you been on the board?
I'm not on the board. I
Oh, you
just
just
take the
take the minutes.
minutes. Mhm.
Okay, gotcha.
For 3 years. I'm just about, I have one more month left after this.
Gotcha. Well, it's an important job.
Do you
Where are
want
you?
it? Actually, the board member you're replacing was the secretary.
Gotcha. Okay. So you're doing it on behalf of them for now?
Well, not exactly. They have what they call a recording secretary. But if I wasn't going to be able to do it, he would have done it probably.
I see.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
They haven't told you about that yet.
Not yet. I'm coming in a little new, so I have a feeling I'm just going to be taking my own notes today. A lot of them probably.
Well, there's a recording, you can always go back and watch the recording if you're unsure about something.
Yeah, I saw that. That's a great idea. Hi, Todd.
No.
You're muted.
You know sign language for
No,
drinking coffee?
cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Here's to
I
coffee.
shouldn't be having this late, but I didn't have my, yes, very good.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you, Sarah?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Hi, Dorothy.
Oh,
I rename myself here.
yes, good too.
I just went and tried to adopt a puppy
What?
and Scraps wouldn't let me get him tonight. I was furious, but I didn't let it show.
Is it the puppy?
It's the puppy.
I knew it.
Is that because they think they have an owner or they have to do a certain?
No, they have to have a 3-day waiting period. And they said, we can, and you have to have an appointment to come and adopt. And then they said they were looking for foster. I said, well, let me foster it. Well, you have to go through our foster training. I said, okay, well, put me on the list to get foster trained and to adopt the dog. So whichever comes first, and anyway, they said, well, that's good. We have to wait 3 days, but if it's a day when we're closed, it doesn't count. So basically they're saying they're going to keep this dog until at least Monday in a cage, which that's why I rushed over, because I couldn't stand the thought of it. I called, to check on it and found out it was in a cage, and I need to go get that dog out. So nothing I can do. I have to be stoic about it, but.
Oh,
So Peggy is okay with this?
I know. Yes. She told me I could go get it. I mean, I couldn't sleep last night, because worried about that.
oh,
I found a dog in the road yesterday, for those who don't know, and it has, I made the mistake of letting it go to Scraps, and now I have to suffer the wait time to get it out. To get it out of lockup, it has to wait till Monday before there's an arraignment court. then I can post bond.
Could have had a free puppy. Now you're gonna have to pay for your puppy.
I know. I'll show you a picture.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I see a picture.
Oh, my God.
Rebecca
Wow.
took a photo of it in the office yesterday.
Oh, who's the,
Oh,
Those ears.
who is the doggy?
Oh,
Well, I rescued him from the road yesterday. He
Oh,
was, you can't see from here, but his ribs, you can see every one of his ribs, so he'd been out for a while. And so he made it to scraps yesterday, and now I'm resenting it, and we're trying to get him out, but the court system at scraps has very strict rules, about him having to go through arraignment and see a judge and all that, and post bond and what the bail amount's gonna be, and so hopefully my attorney can break him out by Monday. At least he's safe. He won't get run over and he won't starve, but
Have you named this puppy yet?
I haven't. I don't know. I thought of Hitch just because he hitched a ride with me, so that's the way I think.
It's-
I might give him an inmate's name. I don't know at this point. I don't, that may be more fitting since he's done time. Might name him Felon or something.
Or Snowden.
Snowden, there you go. Yeah.
Any sense of how old he is?
I would guess he's 4 or 5 months, maybe 6.
Hmm.
I think he's a big 4 myself.
Will they check to see if he has an implant or a tag?
They've already checked, yeah, no chip,
Okay,
tattoos, yeah.
So it sounds like you found a stray, is that it?
Yeah, it's in the road yesterday,
Oh,
up on Government, about to get run over. So
wow. What kind would you say?
I'd say he's probably like a German Shepherd Hound Dog mix. It looks like it's gonna be huge. It's got gigantic paws and it's already, I thought it was a coyote actually when I saw it because it was so scrawny but it was big enough to be a coyote.
Wow.
Only when I looked at its features that I realized it was still a puppy.
Todd, you're breaking up pretty substantially. I don't know whether you can fix that or whether it's something on my end.
I'm getting that too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard breaking up is hard to do.
it says your bandwidth is low. The message says your bandwidth is low.
I always thought Todd had a really
So,
large
what I'm gonna
bandwidth.
do is I'm gonna get out and get back on. That usually helps. That will resolve it.
Well, we know that Betsy's not going to be here.
Yeah.
She's sick and bad, and it's later there than it is here.
Yeah.
And haven't heard from anybody else.
So Todd, try counting to
Ho-
10
ho-
and
Hopefully,
let's
that'll help.
try counting to 10, Todd. Well, let's see how it sounds.
Yeah, now it looks to me like you guys are frozen. So
Wow.
everybody's frozen. Wow.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I see.
Tom, you're muted.
Sorry, I said I see everybody moving and speaking okay, but you're sometimes freezing and losing your voice.
Yeah, so I'm like Tom. I don't seem to be having these problems at my end, but Todd is breaking up for me.
I'm not having any problems and I'm hearing Todd just fine.
Hmm.
And Todd only has minor breakups for me, so I can understand what it is he's trying to say.
Todd is completely frozen for me right now.
Yeah, he's frozen for me.
Oh,
right
now he's frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah, now it's frozen for me too.
Don't we love technology?
Yeah, no
No.
kidding.
Oh, I really do.
Mm. Mm.
There might be a squirrel chewing on his internet line somewhere.
Who
Or a
knows?
puppy.
Hopefully that'll help my. No, yeah. I was over at the church today with my computer and it's so open on a different. I noticed it had defaulted to my, I put it back upstairs, so hopefully that'll help. It's usually fine up here.
Well, shall I call us to order and ask for if there are any proposed amendments to the agenda for tonight? Okay, so it doesn't look, oh wait, Tom, do you have a finger up? Do you want to say something? You have a finger on your page.
He does?
Yeah, it's a little hand with a, oh wait, uh-oh, sorry. That was mine. That was, all right. Okay. So then without any objection, we'll approve the minutes for this evening and proceed to opening words with Todd.
Okay, I'm going to, my opening words are going to be a little longer than usual. About a page from a book. Some of you have probably heard of it. It's called Unitarian Universalists of the State of Washington. And it's a history of the origins of all these different UU churches. So this is the first page. From our origin story. It's good to hear how much things have changed sometimes. Dr. Charles Wendt embarked on a missionary tour in 1886. After visiting Unitarian groups in Olympia, Seattle, and Tacoma, he went on east to see if he could revive the congregation in Walla. His hopes were shattered, and he was about to leave when he received a letter from Mrs. R.E. Spokane Falls, a small settlement not yet listed in the 1880s census. Mrs. Clark was a Unitarian from Cincinnati, and Mr. Clark was a native of Connecticut. On his traveled country, and found that the so-called Opera House had been rented for his lecture. He recalled it was a large, dingy hall seating several hundred, and only a few people came. That was an uneasy time for the white signs. This very night, Indians were on a rampage. Wild. Some Unitarians had joined the posse, formed for the settlers'
Todd, we're losing so much of what you're.
protection. However, the men returned. Are you really? It's freezing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
we're just not getting the gist.
You know what sometimes does work is if you turn off your camera, that just reduces the bandwidth demands that you make and the audio comes through okay.
Okay, does this sound better? Does it sound like I'm stopping it all, stalling?
Yeah, it sounds better.
Sounds better.
It's better? Okay. I'm gonna try it again, okay?
Sure.
And again, if it's not working, just tell me and we'll just give up tonight and I'll do it another time. Dr. Charles Went embarked on a missionary tour in 1886. After visiting Unitarian groups in Olympia, Seattle, and Tacoma, he went on east to see if he could revive the congregation in Walla Walla. His hopes were shattered, and he was about to leave when he received a letter from Mrs. R.E. Clark of Spokane Falls, a small settlement not yet listed in the 1880 census. Mrs. Clark was a Unitarian from Cincinnati, and Mr. Clark was a native of Connecticut. On invitation from Mrs. Clark, Dr. Went made his way through the untraveled country and found the so-called opera house had been rented for his lecture. He recalled it was a large, dingy hall seating several hundred, and only a few people came. This was an uneasy time for the white settlers, as the Whitman massacre was still fresh on their minds. This very night, Indians were on a rampage, wild with liquor. Some Unitarians had joined the posse, formed for the settlers' protection. However, the expected attack never occurred, and the little army of 50 men returned the next day after a night spent under the stars. After several more meetings
We're
with
still losing.
interested persons, Dr. Went felt that a
You're gone,
community for
all gone, Todd.
yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean, my Wi-Fi, I can go reboot my Wi-Fi system and see if that helps. I don't know what's going on. So I'll catch you guys in a little bit, see if that works.
Okay.
Sorry. Well, I guess I will proceed then, and welcome Sarah Darcy, who has agreed to join us on the board. And I have to tell you, I am sure, Sarah, I'm going to call you Stacy, because there's something about Sarah and Darcy that goes in my mind to make Stacy. So I think I have already called you Stacy in talking about you to other people. So I will do my best to correct that.
It's totally fine.
I'll try to just not remember your last name, and then I know it's Sarah. Okay, so I'm really glad that you're here, and I hope that you're going to enjoy this as much as I'm sure we'll all enjoy having you here.
Thank you.
And I actually, this is a good time. Could you say a little something about yourself? Oh, wait, Tom, yes?
At some point, you need to take a formal acceptance, and you need to have a motion. It needs to be, everybody kind of has to be identified if it's not unanimous, et cetera, at some point.
Okay, well, let's do it right now. Get it over with. Do I have acceptance of, okay, I'm making a motion for the acceptance of Sarah Darcy as a member of our board.
Second.
Do we need a second or no?
If it's unanimous, you don't need a second. I just learned that recently.
Okay, all in favor?
Oh,
Yeah, okay, yeah, unanimous. Okay, great. So, all right, so Sarah is now a member of our board. And would you please tell us some about you for anybody who doesn't know?
okay. That's always tough because I told Todd this, that my brother always says I'm an over communicator. So it's like, well, I was born this year, and then after that, the whole story. But the Cliff Notes version is I was born in Seattle, and my family moved over here to Spokane when I was like 3. So I'm a Spokaner from the beginning, and grew up in the Valley, went to all Valley schools, graduated from CV, and then I went to University of Idaho, strangely. My dad had been a WSU, been a Cougar, and a lot of my family were Cougars, but I think like 80% of my high school class went to WSU, and I was kind of looking for something a little different. So I went 8 miles down the road and was a rebel and went to U of I and graduated with a degree in clothing, textiles, and design, which is very strange from that school, but it was kind of what I was passionate about at the time. And then ended up having a career in real estate, which didn't go along with my degree at all, but that's pretty much all of my working experience was in real estate and more development. And then on the latest was more recruiting and hiring and training for a real estate company. And then for the last about 6 or 7 years, I've been a stay-at-home mom. So I have 2 boys who are 12 and 14. And my husband and my boys are everything. They're my whole life. And we do have a dog, Marie, and a kitty, Apollo, and they are part of the family. I joke that sometimes I like animals more than people. So yeah, that's kind of the gist, I guess. I really enjoy being at home, and my story of how I came to the church is sort of a long one, but I'm so happy to be here and be in a place where everyone is so incredibly welcoming, and just, a long history of not feeling like I belonged. And it's so nice to have found a place where you belong no matter what. So I'm really happy. And thank you, Candace, for calling me and asking me if I'd be interested. And it means a lot. It's a real honor. So thank you for having me.
Great.
Hope that wasn't too long.
You're muted, Catherine.
Sorry. So I was saying welcome, and I wanted to share something that Sarah had shared with me, which is that you and I have somewhat similar stories about what caused us to join the church. And really it was the Gadfly Papers and all of the controversy around it. I think actually is going to bring people to our church, not just send some people away, because it was that was a really key point in making me want to be part of something and stand up for something. And sounds like that was true with Sarah. And also, she and I both had been wanderers, church wanderers, and trying different places and different religions, and finally finding a place that just really felt like it fits. So really happy to have you here. And the next thing I'd like to say is I'm going to need somebody to be the key point person in helping to find us a recording secretary for the minutes, because Dorothy won't be here anymore very, very soon. And I do not know people in the congregation well enough to even know who to ask. So we won't have any minutes unless we have a secretary, and I just don't even know where to begin. So could anybody want to volunteer to be the point person? Or, I've asked everybody to get back to me with suggestions, but I don't have any more. So I'm stuck.
Well, so I don't know, being new, obviously, I don't know that I have a role yet, but I'm happy to take minutes.
Well, I don't think that's ideal. Is that,
Okay.
isn't that true? Lynn and Richard, and I think we've had a separate person do
Hard to
minutes,
do
because
both.
it's hard to really to interact as well as you might want to if you're busy taking minutes, I think.
Yeah, that's very, very generous of you. So, well, we have a month to find somebody. I have nobody coming to mind right now outside of those I've already suggested, but that didn't work out. So,
Dorothy, you're irreplaceable.
Yeah. Well, we don't want to tell her that, because we want her to do what she wants to do too.
I know, but it's true.
Well, okay, I'll assume that we will get somewhere with that. And in the meantime, I'm happy to talk to anybody or ask anybody, but I don't have any names or phone numbers. So just get that to me and I'll take it from there. And then the next thing that I wanted to talk about is how grateful I am to Candace for being the person that I think really pushed the hardest to say, we need everybody's input about how they feel about joining the NAUA, of the congregations, and put together a survey and really looked at everybody's responses and shared that with us. And it came to, well over 2/3 of the people did want to be part of NAUA. And I think we even voted on that, but we're not part of the NAUA until it is agreed upon by the congregation by a 2/3 vote. And Lynn was the person that noticed that. Her eagle eyes spotted that in the bylaws, and I think it just went over everybody else's head. And so that is something that we need to do, and was a big boo-boo on our part. So thank you, Lynn, and thank you, Candace, for that. At least we know that most likely the spirit of people wanting to be part of the NAUA is there. I think we'll probably also need to do any refresher questions that people may have about joining it before voting at the annual meeting.
I would just, if I can,
Yes.
I would just add, actually, I think Candace could give her report. We have so much information from that report that Candace did. And I really think it would be not great use of our time to rehash a whole bunch of that kind of stuff from people who chose not to. We have a really good indication. I think it's a good idea to go over that report and just be really clear that that was a change to our bylaws. It's Article 1, Section 5, where I found that when I was looking for something else that Tom and I were working on. It was a new change that we added when we changed the bylaws, which is why I think it just went over everybody's head. It was something that we needed to do. We need to have 2/3 of a vote of our congregation if we are joining or leaving the UUA, but we added or any other organization. So easy mistake to make, and a pretty easy fix, since we're coming right up on our annual meeting too. So,
Well, just let me know what information you would like me to send out.
I think just to have that as maybe even presented at the annual meeting again, because you did a nice presentation at the.
Mhm.
I mean, we can certainly talk about that as we're planning our annual meeting, but we have people really had an opportunity to speak, and many people probably spoke in writing that likely would not stand up at an annual meeting
Sure, I'm
and
sure.
speak in public. So I think we have probably even better information in that report than we do
Yeah.
in person. So
This is ever so slightly off topic, but I tried to go on to the NAUA website today. Todd, I sent you an email and with a screenshot because when I did, it came up with some sort of strange security notice saying that this website is not secure.
Oh, is that right? Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, today it was down because we were changing the domain name. Somebody, not me, thought it would be, domain names are hard to get what you want. NAUA.org would be best. But I ended up being able to get NAUnitarians.org, which is at least easy to say, but somebody thought NAUnitariansassociation.org would be better, and somehow made that the original domain. So we finally made that switch today, the NA Unitarians, and it required it to propagate through the system, whatever that means. So it's back up. I just checked it a little bit ago, and Lynn, I made 2 donations, one PayPal and one with just my credit card, and both of them went through. So I don't know what issues people are having, but it worked on my end.
Could you send me that link, the one that you used and you were successful with? Just email it to me and I'll try
Yeah,
it.
sure. Or would you like me to put it in the chat?
Yeah, you could do that. It's actually easier if you send it to email.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me find your email. I'll do that now. You guys can keep talking.
Well, I'm thinking that finally we have you in full voice, Todd. And I don't know if you want to do your opening words now, or if you just want to jump into the minister's report.
Why don't I just jump into the minister's report? It was kind of long and I already spent a lot of time, so maybe we'll do that another time. It's a pretty interesting origin story, but we'll move on. Yeah, so I rebooted. That seemed to solve it, I hope.
Good.
So a couple of things I want to report on today. One, just to follow up on our there was some discussion at our last meeting around volunteers and needing more volunteers, which of course is always the case for any organization. But Rebecca and I just yesterday looked at all of the teams that we have, committees and whatnot, and really they are all staff. They all have people on them. So I don't think the issue is that we don't have enough volunteers. I think the issue might be that we don't have enough new volunteers. It may be that there are folks on some teams that would like to step away, that have been doing it for a long time, but are afraid that if they do, there'll be nobody to continue the work. So what we have decided to do is institute a monthly, just like we have a monthly special collection, on a second Sunday of the month, we will have a membership moment, and not a membership moment, a volunteer moment, I should say, where a member of a team can get up and talk about their team. So whether it's Spokane Alliance, or which we hope will be the first one, or some other team that sort of excite people about why they might want to serve on it. So more about using one more mechanism for promoting the need for volunteers and the opportunities. So that's kind of where we are at with that. And I think we will see how it goes. Then just an update on NAUA. We did go online last Wednesday. And I mean, really, I've considered the website that we have sort of under beta testing, if you will, in that we weren't really promoting its existence. We were just putting it up to work out the bugs. And the first day we had, like 40 or 37 people join, and over 40 before the next day was up. And then, people continue to join, individuals continue to join at a smaller rate. Again, without us having advertised. I think one of the most interesting groups to have joined was really our first organizational group. And it was a group that joined as an organization rather than an individual. And it's a group of people, I've met them and talked with them via Zoom. A couple of them have actually visited us here in Spokane from a church out in Hayward that is going through the same sort of conflict a lot of congregations are going in over the issues of our day. And so some of them have decided to start their own fellowship, just a small group meeting in someone's home right now, but they joined as a organization, and their name of their organization is the Hayward NAUA Fellowship. So they actually put the NAUA in their name, which just makes me feel great. And I called to thank them and let them know how great it was having them as members. And of course, I feel like we need to offer a lot more to our members than we are able to right now. But the one of the members said, Todd, we thank you. We feel like we have a church home again. We feel like we have a community again. And it really dawned on me just how important that is, and that really is why the NAUA exists. So that those of us who have been feeling like we don't have that hub that connected us all, that home that connected us all, could have it again. And just the very idea of NAUA is enough to help a lot of people. So that made me feel extraordinarily good. We have received several more donations online, and I think that's going to continue to come. We're continuing to get checks as well. So I think we're going to have a good amount of money to continue to improve what it is we're doing for the coming weeks and months. I don't know
I
if there's any
just would-
questions, but yeah.
Well,
Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to add that oftentimes with these checks that are being sent to the church office, Rebecca's putting them in a little mailbox she's made for me to go pick up. And they often come with a little handwritten note from people. And it's just, I think we should preserve these, actually. They're just so sweet.
Good.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
And people are, here's what I'm giving right now. There will be more to come. I've spoken with others who also want to join and will be joining. So happy to support the NAUA. Just really, really happy people out there. So it feels really good.
Yeah.
I hope you will retain those, Lynn. Maybe even put them in a little, 3-ring binder and the little plastic thing, just for us to have for the history. I think that's really valuable. Lily's being a little unruly tonight, so I'm muting and stopping my video at various points here. So wanted to let you know that's going on. She's just over 1 year old now, and having a lot of sort of, I'm going to do what I want moments, which is a little different, but she's still a sweetheart.
Quick question, Todd. You mentioned Hayward. Is that a community here in Washington or in adjacent?
California, sorry. Hayward, California. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, Tom?
Before we moved to operations team report, there's a couple of things as parliamentary advisor that we need to discuss, and you may want to take some action. So when I get a chance.
Sounds like if we don't have any more questions for Todd, that might be next on the agenda then, dealing with what you're talking about, Tom. Any other questions for Todd? Okay, take it away, Tom, then.
Okay, this would be clarification for you, Dorothy, on the motion that that recognized Darcy as an appointment. You should clarify that it's an appointment to fill position, whatever it is, in the sequence of positions. And that it's an appointment till the next election. And Daryl had a position, and I don't have, I think he kept track of the position, so I hope that's transferred to somebody, or that somebody is keeping track of that, because I'm not going to, but you need to keep track of positions and who's filling them. And the other thing is, am I recalling correctly that in your last meeting or the meeting before that you actually passed a motion to join, for the church to join NAUA?
We did.
Yes.
Okay, if you did, then you need to rescind that motion. And that's a simple motion to be made to rescind a previous vote to join NAUA, for the church to join NAUA. It needs a second and just simply needs to be passed by a majority.
So I'll make a motion that we rescind the vote to join NAUA, and can I just ask for all in favor of that?
Yeah, when the chair makes a motion like that, unless there's an objection.
Okay, unless there's an objection, then we will rescind the vote to join NAUA, understanding that we will be asking for the congregation's approval at our next annual meeting.
Good.
Okay, done. And so I don't remember, is it the case that when somebody is filling another person's spot on the board, that always then that position is formally voted in at the next annual meeting?
No, it means that the position that Daryl filled, as I understand, was a 3-year position with 1 year left, and he resigned in the second year. And so Darcy's been appointed to fill out his position for the second year. And then that position will stand for election for a 1-year term at the next general meeting. And whether Darcy wants to run for that position or not, there has to be an election to either elect you, Darcy, or if you choose to run.
Sarah, by the way. See, I was calling her Stacy, you're calling her Darcy. So
I
Sarah.
literally will go by Sarah.
Mosier,
Thank you.
Mosier does that all the time.
Yeah, excuse me. Yes.
We work with code names here.
Yeah, now that I put my name on your position, I see your name. I'm sorry, I apologize. But you understand the process there, right?
So he had another year after the end of this year, is that correct?
Yeah. And
Okay,
that's why
so
it's important to think about these as positions first and people second. So you think of your 7 positions and how long each term is and when the term begins and when the term ends. And then it's easier to keep track and think of people only filling a position and not necessarily being a person. And then you would be less likely to lose track of how long someone served or all that sort of stuff.
okay, so we don't have to vote for a new person then until next year, though.
Well, yes, you do. This coming election, coming
Oh.
congregational meeting, you need to have a person to be elected for the remainder of the 3-year term that Daryl was in.
But that's what the nominating team is doing.
I assume that they're doing that.
They are.
Okay,
Yeah, the board can only appoint somebody to a vacancy until the next opportunity for the congregation to vote, because it is ultimately the congregation who elects its officers.
and that's all in the bylaws. So, yeah.
Okay,
Glad somebody's read the bylaws.
thank you, Tom.
That'd be Tom, that'd be Mosier.
But we all need to work on this together, and you have a lot to do, and I don't have as much as you all have to do.
For the operations team, then, did you have something about that as well?
Me, no.
Okay, all right. So then we can proceed with Candace giving us the operations report.
Okay. I wanted to say hi to Lilia. It's good to see you here tonight. I know you weren't feeling well last month at all. I trust you're feeling a lot better now.
I am, and I'm so sorry I was late. I totally thought it was next Wednesday, and I'm at my kids' gymnastics practice, and I just went, I think this is happening right now. So I'm so sorry. I totally had it a week off, but yes, I'm feeling better.
Okay, good. Okay. The church's current budget is in good shape, 22-23 budget, with UUCS right where we should be in terms of revenues coming in at this time of year. The NAUA donations were transferred to its new bank account at STCU. The ops team reached consensus about adding an information page to the church's website with directions how to send donations directly to NAUA, and also have a direct link to the end. We received a $15,000 donation, which has been sent to the Seattle Foundation. The estate of Rosemary Belays has indicated a sizable donation will be given to the endowment team in the future, around $12,000. Work is scheduled for our fire alarm system to be attached to the kitchen oven hood in order for our building to be in compliance with current fire codes. The cost will be approximately $2,500, which will be pulled from the capital fund. 4 new fire extinguishers need to be purchased to replace 4 out of the 8 extinguishers in the building, and that cost is estimated to be around $800. This is what Todd was talking about with the volunteers. Anyway, it was called a teen showcase, will be happening soon with one team per Sunday. Though I was a little confused, maybe it's once a month, Todd?
Once a month, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
I had in my notes both. And so it's like, well.
that's fine. We've done it like that, Candace, where we would have a period where every, I think we talked about that, where every Sunday they would do it for a couple of months, but we have so many teams, it makes better sense just to do an ongoing
Okay.
once a month. Yeah.
Okay, once a month. Highlighted by a team member in order to encourage people to volunteer for the respective teams. Some teams are fully staffed while others only partially. And again, that may not be completely accurate, Todd, because you said that all the teams are staffed, but some need some new members. So.
Yeah, I think that's probably, and that's the hardest part to know, which teams have burnout on them, because people don't tell us, so.
Okay.
So we'll work on that through this, just trying to get new people involved. Usually a team can handle more than are on them already, so, we can.
Okay. And the ops team will be picking which teams will be asking for volunteers. Stephanie Gronholtz, our religious education specialist, is in the process of converting the last RE room on the left, down the hall on the left, for a youth room with furniture and a large screen TV mounted on the wall. The youth room will be used for movie nights and other social events for the children. And lastly, Windsong School, which is located close to our church grounds, will be using our parking lot for drop-offs and pickups of children attending their school. The times are Monday through Friday in the morning, at noontime, and after school, around I think 1:50 to 2:15. The school will compensate our church for the use of the parking lot, the amount to be determined later. So that's it.
So
Yes, Tom?
Well, this is kind of a logistic question because I've been involved in helping to reestablish a usher thing for sure. If the parking lot's locked, how are they going to do this? Or are you going to use just the parking lot in front of the church and outside of that locked parking lot?
That was my understanding. Todd, you might have more information on this.
Yeah, they're actually are going to use the part that is locked, but they'll only be using the front entrances to that, not the road, the secondary road entrance, which will stay padlocked. And they will open those up themselves in the morning and then close them when they're done in the afternoon.
Okay.
Great.
one thing, again, I went on, I recognize that you're working to get the word about the North American Unitarian Association out. And I noticed in the ops team that there was mention that there was a link on the website, but I went on our website this afternoon and I didn't find it. Now, maybe that's my bad, but I just wanted to report that.
Well, the ops team actually talked about putting a link on, so that was what happened in that meeting is we discussed putting one on. So, and Rebecca has the information, but again, we've sort of been trying to iron out the wrinkles of the website before we really start to promote it, because we don't want people going on and wanting to contribute and they can't contribute, or trying to go on and it doesn't go anywhere but to an under construction page or whatever it might be. So, but I'll send you the link now, Richard, while I'm thinking about it again. I got distracted a minute ago.
Now, and I think it's prudent to make sure that you have, the the ability to receive everybody that's interested in trying to reach you, before we post the link, because getting a link that's a dead end is
Right.
not what you want to have happening.
Yeah, well, hopefully it'll work for everyone else the way it worked for me, because I tested it just before we came on and it was working, so.
Okay.
So now I think we should enter into the annual meeting planning discussion. And that's coming up. What is the date? It's June what?
We need to set it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's right. Thank you. So we need to set that. Any suggestions for the date? I can't
I
remember.
do. I would love for it to be June 11th,
Okay,
if there's no objections to that. I think it gives people enough time, gives us all enough time. We have a whole bunch of paperwork and stuff that has to be ready for that. It gives congregants, anybody who's interested in or wanting to make any bylaw recommendation changes or bring something forward to the congregation, gives that extra week. Much later than that gets a little bit late. I think GA is like the 22nd through the 25th, which would be pretty late in June anyway. So
Yeah.
it's kind of that mid-month.
Well, and June 18th is Father's Day.
Oh, and June 18th is Father's Day. Yeah, that'd be good.
June 11th, my son is graduated from college and I won't be here.
Mm,
After many years of going religiously through the educational system, you know, I'm gonna be there, so.
Well, absolutely. What about June 4th then? Is that too early?
It's good for me.
So,
it might be our only choice if we're not gonna do Father's Day.
yeah, but last year we did June 5th. That was the date of our.
Did we?
Yeah, it was June 5th. And we discussed it. We thought it was a little bit early, but that was our experience.
I think it felt really early last year because we were running so, late with the bylaw stuff and we had the April bylaw
Mhm.
special congregational meeting. So it felt like, oh, boom. And people were last year a little bit more intent about wanting to change some of the bylaws that we had just presented. So that may not be the case this year.
Mhm.
Just seemed like a mid-month thing would be good, but June 4th works.
Mhm. Yeah, Tom?
Well, when Lynn and I discussed this quite a bit at length in one of our little meetings. The value of June 11th, and you just need to take this into consideration, is that the board meeting in May, because I think there's 5 Mondays in May. The board meeting in May, you won't have a full 2 weeks up to June 4th. And whereas you would have more than 2 weeks in the event that you need to do some shuffling around in order to get a 14 days notice out before the meeting, between the board meeting and the congregational meeting. So
Mm,
it's just something to think about. I can't pop up my calendar, but I think that March was, or that May had the 5.
You're right. I'm looking at May right now.
Yeah. So
Well, could we put the notice out after our April board meeting?
well, you can, you just don't have an opportunity to make any adjustments and still have 14 days notice if you wanted to have the flexibility to have something change in your May meeting. And again, you guys need to decide.
well, if the 11th was better, would it break Candace's heart to not be here?
It would
For
break my heart if Candace wasn't there.
But what if we,
It really
change-
would.
what if we
Yeah.
change the board meeting to the 17th of May?
There you go.
Yeah, let's just do an earlier board meeting.
Okay,
Okay,
Problem solved.
I think it would be so great to have Candace there after all the work she did with that survey.
yeah, you're
To do that
right.
presentation.
okay.
I'm making some notes here, just a sec.
Then you need to have a motion in this meeting to establish for certain a date and a time for the annual meeting.
Is it normally held just following the 11 o'clock service?
It's usually at 12:30, right? Isn't it? Didn't it
Yeah.
start at 12:30 usually?
Yeah,
Yeah,
So I'll make a motion that our annual meeting will be on Sunday, the 4th at 12:30. And if there are no objections, then we'll approve it.
That's right.
Okay.
You got it. You got it.
okay,
And then for April, the 17th is a Monday, so we'd want to meet on the 19th. Is that correct?
mhm.
Well, isn't it May? It's the May meeting, not
I'm
April.
sorry. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Mm.
Forget that.
hard to keep it all straight, isn't it?
Right.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so April 26th, yeah, because there's only 4 Wednesdays in April.
So April 26th will be the next one, and then May 17th.
Okay,
Do we have to change, we don't have to make a motion for that, we just have to let everybody know, right?
I believe so.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the particular day that you meet is not encoded anywhere. In fact, it's tended to change from board to board, although the last few have kept it the 4th Wednesday, so.
So aside from when we're meeting, what else, what should we proceed to next about the annual meeting?
Well, we need to make plans for it. And actually, I sort of have a suggestion that I haven't talked to Mr. Mosier about yet, but maybe I'll just hold off on that until after we talk about our policies and procedures stuff. I just find it very complicated to bring the whole board together as frequently as we were meeting for the last couple of years because we were working on bylaws all the time.
Yeah.
It was very difficult, I think, for people to be really consistent meeting weekly like that. And as we get closer to the annual meeting, we spent even more time doing that than working on bylaws, but we were still meeting weekly. And that is very hard. And not just for this board, but I'm thinking of boards in the future too. That it's just really hard for people to be able to do that. And I'm not sure how, or maybe it's just always been that way, but that seems like it's a rather complex way to prepare for an annual meeting for an entire group of people, 7 people, to have to get together weekly to have it be so perfect. So my suggestion, and I have not spoken to Tom about this yet, but we are nearly finished with our policies and procedures stuff, and we're going to talk about that tonight. And we have a lovely meeting once a week on Thursdays from 1 to 3, usually, or 1 to 2:30. And I'm wondering if we couldn't continue to do that, Tom, because I don't know what I'm going to do without you on my Thursday afternoons. But that you and I could perhaps be doing some of this planning and script writing and bylaw things that we're going to be presenting anyway, and bring those to the meetings, to the board meetings, so that the board can then be all ready to roll for the annual meeting. I'm wondering what you think about that.
Wow. Yeah, I can certainly continue to do that, and I was gonna have to be involved in part of the
Of course.
putting together the motions and that sort of thing. It certainly could involve another board member or 2 if you wanted to kind of use a subcommittee of the board that would be other than just yourself and me not as a board member, but of course I'm not. So you all could decide that.
I think anybody is always welcome at that meeting. It's just been a set time. And I think that's always the complicated thing. Those meetings are set. Michelle has made those Zoom meetings for us all the way, I think, through the end of May.
But they're not in the list of Zoom meetings, are they?
No, but we could
And
get
they,
that to the,
they shouldn't be, but if, for instance, one or two of the other board members wanted to be
Absolutely.
involved, then there would just become a committee of one or two board members and me, so whatever you all.
and I don't
decide.
want to take away the whole meeting planning from anybody who's interested and wants to do that. Trust me, I'd love to have us all, I loved it when we all got together, but I know how hard that is. It's hard for people to do that. And Tom, you did a lot of the work behind the scenes. Anyway, you were writing, I mean, we basically, last year anyway, we had a script. It was,
Right,
here's how this is gonna go.
yeah, well, that same thing, similar to that, needs to take place. It won't be as complicated, but the other thing that I was going to mention later on, which you could all think about now because it's part of the meeting planning. I've recently been reading in one of my quarterly updates from the National Parliamentarians Association that a parliamentarian can also serve, and not infrequently does serve, as a presiding officer, as I did in the last congregational meeting, because Gordon wasn't available. And it expedites the meeting because then I don't have to get up and whisper in the ear of the presiding officer if there's some issue that comes up. And
Yeah.
most people know we probably got done with that meeting within 5 minutes of our deadline, possibly because I was able to keep things rolling and wasn't intimidated by anybody or felt I had to, treat anybody special. Just try to treat everybody.
Are you saying you're willing to be the moderator again?
I'm willing to be, if that would please the board.
I would love that.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. You did a great job last year, Tom. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah,
it wasn't the easiest board or annual meeting to moderate either, so.
No,
And we got done early, so, many points for you in doing that. Yeah, it would be lovely to have you moderate.
Great.
I'm willing to do that, and you need to, again, I'm kind of a bylaw person. Your guys are supposed to appoint a moderator for the whole entire year, and I don't know as you all did last time, but a motion to appoint me as a moderator for the remainder of this fiscal year would be in order.
Without
move.
objection, then I would nominate Tom to be the moderator for this year.
Yeah.
All in favor? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, done.
yeah.
Thank you,
Tom, I just want to say, you're not only knowledgeable, which everybody recognizes and appreciates. Your demeanor is very soothing. I think you're a good person to have in that position.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
You are a trustworthy person that everybody can sense your trustworthiness from miles away. So yeah, it'll be great.
And I have a pretty hard shell if it comes to criticism, so I'm
Good for you.
Well, then I'm gonna criticize you when you get up there.
it's air let out of my tires after the meeting,
Mm. So it sounds like we'll go, our agenda for the annual meeting will probably stick fairly close to what we had last year, except for the issues that we're dealing with. And we may know more about what those are as we do the other thing that we plan to do tonight, which is the policies and procedures update. Does that sound right? Okay. Well, why don't we delve into that then? Because that'll help inform what the agenda, part of what the agenda for the yearly meeting will be.
Just one thing
yes.
before we move there. So as I recall, one of the first orders of business in the congregational meeting is to approve the minutes of the previous congregational meeting. And if I'm not mistaken, those minutes were written up and they were read over by myself and at least one other person. Okay, so do we know where those minutes are? Is that does this accord with your recollection, Lynn?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I believe those are with Rebecca.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because I think they're in good order, as I recall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's been a year, so I mean, I'm sure I can go back and look at my notes, but I'm pretty sure I just
Yeah.
said, good.
That's all.
Okay. Are you ready for us, for Tom and I?
Yes.
One
yes.
more,
wait.
one more thing I would suggest. I know Darrell was doing the slivers, the board slivers. And I don't know if anybody's going to do one this month, but I thought it might be nice for the board to introduce Sarah to the board. If there was something you needed to write about.
And Sarah's, you had very generously offered to maybe do the minutes instead of the minutes. Would you be interested in doing the board slivers for us?
Well, maybe
No
not this.
idea what that is, but sure.
It's the write-up that Daryl was doing while he's been here. Just it's kind of how would you describe it? A more informally worded description of what went on at the board meeting.
It's kind of brief highlights, I would say.
Yeah. Brief highlights.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be nice for Sarah to be introduced as a human being, you know, to the,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so she doesn't have to introduce herself.
yeah. I don't know if somebody else would want to offer to do that. Or, you know, Sarah, I mean, if you, I mean, I met with Sarah yesterday. We had a wonderful visit. She's can definitely hold a conversation. So it might be that you would want to do that. You would want to say, you know, I've joined the board. Here's who I am. Here's why I am at the church, and here's why I've joined the board. And just give a sort of personal introduction. If you
Yeah.
don't mind not being introduced, that might be nice to hear it from you.
I don't mind at all. Either way is perfect.
I think you missed my introduction of her, Todd, when you were kind of playing with the electronic problem. At least my introduction to her here at our board meeting.
Yeah, no, I did miss that for sure. But I just thought it would be nice for the congregation to, you know, it'd be a good article for the board slivers, for the board to say, here's our newest member who's filling in, and a little bit about her, but
Maybe we can, what if we send Sarah Dick's last month's slivers? And you can kind of just see what he wrote from last month.
That would
They're-
And if you don't feel comfortable, just say, I don't want to do that. You can send it to either Catherine or myself, and we'll pick it right up.
Okay, that sounds
Yeah.
great.
Actually, why don't you can send it to me, and if I think of anything else to add or whatever, you and I can be in contact on the phone, and we can figure out how we want to have it be. And maybe we'll even work it so that I'm introducing you at the beginning of the slivers and then you do the rest. Of course, your input is always welcome, but between the two of us, I'm sure we could do this first time. Does that sound all right to you?
Absolutely. Yep. Sounds
Okay.
great.
Dick, do you have a copy of yours?
I
that you
can,
email?
I can dig them up. I'm not certain that I have Sarah's email address.
Oh, I'll send those to you. I gotta go see who's at my house. I'll be right back.
I just put it in the meeting chat as well, but it sounds like you're gonna get an email too, Richard.
Okay, mom life too. Wow, that's great.
No mystery what I do.
While you're between little things before Lynn and I start, you have a vacant treasurer's position, do you not? Wasn't Daryl acting as treasurer?
No,
Yeah,
Okay.
He's secretary.
But you do have a vacant position, of secretary, which the state law requires that board have a secretary. So, and the bylaws do too.
So isn't Betsy the treasurer? I thought she
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you do have a vacant, an unnamed secretary officer.
So what that means is either Candace, Dick, Lilia, or Sarah needs to be secretary for the next 3 months. Right? We need to have somebody.
What are they actually going to be doing?
Answering that, section 11 of that portion says the secretary is responsible for assuring accurate and complete minutes. That doesn't mean they have to do it, just assuring it takes place. Legal, and that legal requirements are met, including oversight of annual filings with the state. I assume that's been done. And maintaining and tracking all trustee positions and terms, both elected or appointed for the current fiscal year. And if someone maybe could work with Daryl to see if he's got a chart or whatever he's got that could be picked up by whoever would be the officer, which should be someone elected by the board. So that's kind of what's out there that y'all could do at your earliest convenience.
April and May. March, April and May, I guess.
If that's what Daryl was doing and I'm taking over for him, I'm happy to do it. I haven't had the role of a secretary on a board before. I've been on a couple boards, but it was more funding, development and fundraising type things. So as long as I can chat with Daryl and get some insight into what my role is, so I can do it well, then I'm happy to do that.
Well, I could excerpt this section 11 that describes the secretary responsibilities and send them to you if you like.
That would be great.
Okay.
And then I know we have a copy of our rotations. If Daryl is not available to get that to us, although he probably has that really at his fingertips, I'm sure. So, but it seems like didn't we even include an appendix or something on our bylaws? I thought we had a.
At one point, we wanted to do that, and I suggested that it be an appendix, but I don't think it ever happened.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think we could get that pretty quickly figured out because I have it almost in my head, I think. But we'll get it. We'll get that.
Okay.
And then really that part, if you're going to do the board slivers right now, that's what Daryl was doing, the board slivers and making sure Dorothy was doing her job, which she always does. That's the easiest part.
It's not a heavy lift being the board secretary, I think. So without objection, if Sarah's in agreement and without objection, I move that she is now the secretary of the board.
Welcome aboard.
yes.
Welcome aboard. We're all in favor. Thank you. Thank you.
Next week, you're president.
I'm going for it.
Her career rose very quickly. Yay, good. Well, let's talk about what you and Tom, Lynn, have come up with about the policies and procedures update.
Okay. So I am going to give just a little bit of a brief history of what we've done. And that's for a little review for all of you, because you probably haven't been perusing the policies and procedures document since last year, and mostly for Sarah to bring her up to speed as to what we've been doing. So as you probably do know, we updated our bylaws over the course of the previous 18 months up until the last annual meeting. And after we updated our bylaws, all of our bylaws, we recognized that the other document that was sort of out of compliance, certainly because of all of the changes we made in our bylaws, was our policies and procedures document. And it's also called the policy governance document because our church operates under a policy governance form of governing itself. That document had been piecemealed and sort of updated here and there. It's an interesting document because the policies and the procedures manual can be changed by the board. That's what the board does, is make policy. The bylaws, on the other hand, have to be approved and voted on by the congregation only at the annual meeting. So the board doesn't get to decide or change any bylaws. But by doing so, over the course of the year beforehand, it put a lot of the things that were in the policy and procedure manual out of date and out of compliance with some of those things, or there was redundancy in the policies and procedures. So Tom Mosier and I became a subcommittee appointed by the board to look at, over the course of this past many months, since October or September even, we have been going line by line on the policies and procedures document to see what the language said, where there were things that were redundant now, according to our new bylaws, things that we just really needed to take a look at that had not been updated for, in some cases, more than 20 years. So that's what we did. And now we have completed that task. And so I sent all of you last week a copy of the policies and procedures document. If you haven't taken a look at it yet, you don't have to do that tonight. But what I would like you to do as over the course of some time is to take a peek at it. And it is the copy that I sent you the current document as it stands for the church. And then I sent you the working document that Tom and I have been line by line revising or making recommendations for revisions. Now, what we would like to do, well, I will tell you too. So we started by just going through the entire set of new bylaws and seeing where there was any reference made to the policies and procedures document. And then we went through the entire document to see where we could see if there was something in the policies document that wasn't covered in the bylaws and needed to be. So what we've done, what we are recommending now is that we would take a look at the recommended bylaw changes that we want to do, because there are so many places now in our bylaws where we can just do some real pro forma things like get rid of policies and procedures in the bylaws because we don't cross-reference anymore. We don't need to. And Tom has all of those bylaws recommendations that we want to bring forward. We can't change the policies and procedures document if you are so inclined to take our recommendations that we are proposing. We wouldn't be able to do that anyway this church year until after the annual meeting, where you all and the congregation take a look at the recommended bylaws changes we are making, or we want to make, because then it would make the policies and procedures document not be ready. It's basically not, we're just not able to do it in that order. So has a long version of what the document is and how we went line by line to take a look at it. Basically, the policies and procedures looks at the operations team. It looks at the board conduct and the operations team conduct. And then it kind of talks about the interlink between those two and how they interface with each other. And then there were a couple of other policies that had been added to that policy and procedures document over the years that are now covered in our bylaws. So they are really, we just did a lot of scratching things out. So I can share my screen and show you that document, but just for your reading purposes, if you look at that, the document that I sent to you, anything that is red and struck through was original text, and we want to propose to get rid of it. Anything that is black is original text that we want to keep, and anything that is in blue are our recommended changes. That will just take you some time for you to digest. And what we are suggesting now is that Tom, I will share my screen and Tom will present our recommended bylaw changes. And then I will send this document to you and you will have a month to take a look at those. And we can come back to our next meeting in April and you can be tweaking whatever words you'd like to in our recommended bylaw amendments. And once that piece is done, I think the policies and procedures document will sort of fall into place, if that makes sense. So Tom, should I share my screen? You ready?
Yeah, and let me add that in our allotted time this evening, we want to allow time for the end of the meeting. So maybe at looking at your agenda, maybe allowing 10 minutes leading up till 8 o'clock or something, we'll just shut off and then we have to continue at another meeting unless you want to continue going on. It'd be up to you folks. I'm good. I don't go to bed till 11 o'clock.
Oh, gonna be past my bedtime soon. Okay, so I will share my screen and I'll have Tom lead us through these bylaw recommendations. And again, these are, it'll look so similar to those of you who worked on bylaw change documents.
And let me say also that we're going through these in the order, Article 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's a flow. But in the meeting, one of the things that Lynn and I would be continuing to work on would be a number of these are simple no-brainers, or at least we think they are, and they can be lumped together like 5 or 6 or 7 different word changes can be lumped together in one motion. That'll be something kind of a trick to handle in the meeting. Others maybe need to stand by themselves because they may be a little bit controversial and will want to have a motion just addressing something that might cause some more conversation.
Okay. So you ready, Tom? Can you all see my screen?
Mhm. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, what's going on? Let's see, can you scroll up there? Let's see. Can you scroll up to the very end? One more line? Yeah. What we're doing here is there's no need to refer to the policies and procedures, so we're striking that. And then there's a section in the existing bylaws that refer to persons with prior Unitarian Universalist membership with the approval of the minister could be granted membership without going through the orientation process. So what we're doing, although we're striking that, we're including that down below in the blue part, which the similar language is there in sub B. We're also addressing an issue which has come up and is in your board policies, but it should be in the bylaws, and that's that a new or rejoining member that has voting privileges in the Congress, that a new or rejoining, regardless of it, we're trying to say you have to be a member for at least 90 days. We said that for a member, but now we're saying for a rejoining member, the same would apply. And we're also saying that the senior minister can do a proxy signing of the membership book for our new members who are now remote members and simply can't come in and sign the book. And we're also addressing a situation that has arisen a couple of times. And that's a member or friend who withdrew from the church when we had a splinter, that some of those are coming back wanting to rejoin. So we're addressing the situation in the bylaws, how that takes place. And this would also be clarified. They can't come back and expect to vote in a congregational meeting unless it's been at least 90 days. The same with a friend, although a friend can't vote in a congregational meeting anyway. So that's the essence of that proposed amendment. And that's essentially in the explanation. If you scroll a little bit more down there, that's what that basically explanation. This is a document that in one form or another needs to go out to the congregation leading up to the meeting. They have to be aware of what the bylaw amendment or changes are going to be. And this is, as we did in the last congregational meeting, an effort to explain the justification. So, you know, if you all have questions or comments, that would be fine. Otherwise, we'll just keep rolling. Okay, this section two, let me look at my notes here. This section two essentially is that we said probably inappropriately that a friend had to have financial support in previously what we did. And we're now saying that a person who wishes to be a friend shouldn't be required to have financial support, because even a member isn't, because a member can be waived from giving a financial support if they have financial circumstances that cause that to be a problem, or if they do cooperate and participate in some other way, and again have their a donation of services. So we're just trying to clarify a situation, and we simply don't need to address it in the policies and procedures because we're addressing it in the bylaws.
So a quick question, Tom.
Yeah.
So I see you have these little inserts here that say explanation.
Yeah.
Now, does that then become a formal part of the bylaws?
No, oh, no, this is just to get us to the meeting and having, hopefully, and many people will have read the explanation, but these won't be in the bylaws themselves.
Okay. Maybe a separate color for explanations is a kind of transitory thing.
Yeah, the explanations are really right now just for you guys. This
Yeah,
is why we made that change.
right.
Well, but as we did before, we did try to explain it to the congregation.
Right.
So,
Oh, sure.
so they would come to the meeting with a background. Changing it to some other color.
You want me to highlight the explanations, Dick? Would that help?
Well,
Well,
I can,
yeah,
could
I
do
mean, you have things according to status. So black is inherited text. Blue are suggested new changes. Red, strike through, that stuff you're dropping. And you might choose a color like green as just here for convenience, but not a part of the bylaws in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
yeah, we can do that. Good idea.
I'm going to do that as we go. Then I'll just save this
I
document.
I would say don't do it as we go because
Oh.
I have the master copy, so I just like to remain in control.
Oh,
of the
okay.
copy.
Sure.
If we
Okay.
need to make changes to it, you can make them online and then forward it to me, but I can do the change on my master copy.
Okay.
What are we doing? Section 3, we're just striking that because we've got it covered in the bylaws, so we don't need to make reference to it. And these are the kind of ones that I would lump together in one big motion. The ones that are, of this nature. So we could expedite the meeting.
Same thing for section 4.
That's right. And in this one where we're striking out the whole section, when Lynn and I, discussed this, we just figured we had this covered. We managed to cover this in section 1. So we're just striking it out and renumbering from there on.
Yeah.
And it is in fact almost verbatim in section 1 that we just reviewed.
We also did change the 3 months to 90 days to be
Right.
specific.
Yes, because obviously with months varying from 28 to 31 days, that becomes a headache.
Okay, new section 5.
Yeah, that was, let's see. Oh, because we struck out section 5, then we had to renumber from there on down, but we also struck out a phrase there in sub B with reference to policies and procedures, because we've now got it covered in the bylaws. And Article 3, which she can't show all at once.
Yeah.
Section 7 and Section 8
Oh.
are related. Essentially, what it says in Section 7, we had trouble with the phrase "or can be monetized," and put in that an undesignated donation that's monetary, securities, or real estate would be dealt with in this fashion of A, B, C, and D. But down in number 8, it got completely rewritten. There was a long discussion the board has had before about, if you're looking at section 8, the board being the final authority for any donation, just in general, became problematic because the board's a policy board and really shouldn't be dealing with that kind of minutia, except under very rare circumstances where it seemed to be that nothing else worked. So we wrote 8 to be that emphasizing the role of the board as policy governance shouldn't be involved in this level of decision. That is, this is typically not a policy issues. Instead, the board would be proposing that donations not subject to above, whether either real estate, securities, or monetary, that these be handled in a way that would be kind of organized, and they would go first to the operations manager, who would have some guidance in the policies and procedures about how to make a decision. And if the operations manager couldn't make a decision about whether this was a worthy donation, these would be, as an example, the sculpture that was donated to the church. That wouldn't be either category of monetary, securities, or real estate. So that would have gone, under this process, would have gone to the operations manager, who would have, in one level of wisdom or another, would say, well, I'm not a sufficient judge as that. I'll ask the arts team, or maybe the arts team and the Memorial Garden team, to evaluate whether this is something our church can use. And they would use that same set of criteria, which is now in the policy, which we are proposing to be in the policy and procedures manual as criteria. And then if it couldn't be determined by either the operations manager or an appropriate team, that kind of decision would be forwarded to the board, kind of a last resort going to the board. So we kind of tried to deal with strictly monetary things. That's already kind of been dealt with, either endowment fund or the general fund, and then a real estate or some kind of a securities, which could be monetized, they would have a value, a monetary value that they could be handled that way. And if it was something other than monetary securities, such as stocks, bonds, or something, then it would go through this process of trying to be evaluated either by the operations manager and or with the advice from one of the teams. So we're just trying to refine how we deal with donations.
I have a question. I'm curious why, like in section A, part A, it doesn't say operations team rather than operations manager. And I'm just thinking that, the more heads that get together to discuss something like this might be better than just one person.
Well, the tricky thing with that is, actually, we brought this forward already to the board as a policy. But the issue with that, Candace, is that the operations team only meets once a month. And
Mhm.
so if it is something that would need to be really discussed by the operations team, we're
Mhm.
hoping that our operations manager has the wherewithal that that's something that she would do. And we pretty much know that that's true.
Mhm.
But
Well, they can meet more than once a month if it's necessary.
yes, they can.
Yeah.
But really what this is meant to be is something relatively quick, not for the operations manager to be saying, no, we don't want that, but to get it to the right person or team,
Okay.
and to sort of take it out of her responsibility or that person's responsibility, but also that she knows about it. So for example, the sculpture went around the operations manager, and the sculpture that was
Mhm.
donated didn't go through the operations manager. So this makes sure that whether or not the operations manager is actually the person who makes the decision, that at least she has it documented. There is this donation, and it is now in the hands of so-and-so team to be looking into that.
Which could include the operations team,
It could be.
because it's
I personally, it may be just me, but I would feel more comfortable saying acceptance or rejection by the operations manager in consultation with the operations team, or B, referral to the appropriate team or committee.
what do y'all think?
So from a logical point of view, what I'm thinking is that it should go to the operations manager for assignment to the appropriate team, which could include the operations team. That might be the appropriate team to concern itself with this thing, or it might be the arts and aesthetics. And then B, which is so assignment, consideration by the appropriate team would be A. Then the recommendation from that team back to the operations manager for further consideration.
Well,
Yep.
so
I
maybe
think
instead of
the
or,
issue,
you could put and. A, and B,
yeah, I think the issue with the sentence is that it says acceptance or rejection. So it's not just the operations manager saying, I'm going to determine what team it should go to.
Mm-hmm.
The operations manager actually is capable of making the choice first. And I think that would traditionally be a decision that's made in an operations team meeting, not by the operations manager alone.
Mm-hmm. But the operations manager could assign it to whatever team should
But
handle
that's
it.
not, yeah, but that's not what the line says, right?
Right,
It
correct.
says acceptance or rejection, so.
Right.
I think
It
that's
should,
the language that probably needs to change, that's.
yeah. So
The operations manager shall determine which team, be it the operations team or
Yeah.
whoever,
So So the operations manager assigns it to the team, whatever is the right team. They make the decision,
Yeah.
get back.
Well, they should get back to the operations
Team,
and get back. So that's what you have to decide is team as the, and an example is something that I gave recently, and I used this process because I knew it was in the works. I gave an antique piano cover, which is almost 100 years old, but I don't have a piano, and my daughter and son decided, let's give it to the church. They have a piano. Well, I went in and I told Rebecca that I had this to give, and would she please deal with this? Well, she consulted with Debbie, and Debbie said, oh, sure, let's do it. Now, was that important enough to take to the operations team, call a special meeting, or wait a month, or wait 2 weeks? So that was kind of in the back of our minds when we wrote the operations manager should be able to handle all this and go through her or him. So,
And I had a similar example where she actually rejected and said, no, thank you, Lynn, to an electric wheelchair that I thought maybe might be nice if somebody needed help getting into the church from the parking lot. But Rebecca said that wouldn't, that they have wheelchairs, and no, thank you. And I agree with Tom. I think there are some things that we need to trust that she would know this needs to go to the whole team, or I think I can make this decision. But I'm happy to have it.
yeah, whatever you all want.
Yeah, I'm personally not comfortable with the acceptance or rejection
Mhm.
line
Language.
by the operations manager. I think that should either be removed and stated that the operations manager shall choose which team it be appropriate
Yeah.
to turn the decision over to, or to discuss it with at least, or that it would be changed acceptance or rejection by the operations team, or referral by the operations manager or operations team to the appropriate team or committee. Just knowing how we work, I know Rebecca's very smart and she makes good decisions. And a wheelchair would probably not be something that we would we would disagree about, but there could be something, that
Mhm.
we would want to have a say. So,
Well, are you suggesting just changing the word manager to team, operations team in both A and B? Would that solve?
I think
I think so. I think that would, yeah.
I would recommend that A be reworded, that is, assignment by the operations manager to appropriate team for consideration. And the team considers it, gets back to the operations team, let them know. And at that point, if the team decides that they don't want it, whatever team got it, the operations team then has it to discuss, and maybe there's another team that hears about it or could use it, and that would come out, might not have occurred to the operations manager, might come out of a discussion in the operations team. Just a thought.
Yeah, except the B would be redundant, right? If you change A to say that, because B already says that the operations manager would refer it to the appropriate team.
Well, it would have to be incorporated, but yeah, you could incorporate A into B, referral by the operations manager, and then you'd have one point.
In which case you'd just be completing the sentence subject to, and eliminate A and B, subject to, and then have a statement. Is that what y'all are saying?
I think that if there's a donation to the church, it should be run through the operations team. I really do. I think I need to have a say in that, and I think we need to have other heads too. That's what the operations team is for. And that's how we've been doing it. Generally, we get, if we have a controversial donation, it's something we would all at least discuss. So I think it should be changed to the operations team.
Yeah, and I think that's no problem. I would just say, get rid of A, reword B, just incorporate it into the end of the previous sentence, subject to referral by the operations team to any appropriate other team for consideration. Whatever is the appropriate team. And that team could be the operations team.
Okay. So Tom, how about I just highlight this and we pretty this one up tomorrow? And you'll know that this is in the works.
Yeah, we need to change the beginning of the last sentence because we
Yep.
will have an A or a B. Well, if you
Yeah.
feel you've got a good grip on that, Lynn,
I think so.
yeah, okay, let's go.
I do think it would work. I mean, you could combine A and B, but I also think it would work if you just change manager to team
Mhm.
in every line. I think it would stand fine the way it is.
Yeah, I think so too.
So that's a simple one then, Lynn, you could keep it yellow, but also try just changing manager to team, and then we can review it tomorrow and change it in A and B and where else it is be appropriate.
Okay.
And I certainly appreciate the spirit in which you're doing it, but I do think there'd be some times where we would want to have other eyes on the decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Well, and I wonder, after the operations team semicolon, you could put and/or. Or maybe and, well, I don't know.
I'll just say and or for now.
Yeah, we'll get into it and
Okay.
wordsmith it, so to speak, huh?
Okay.
Okay.
And then we may have to modify the exclamation to go along with that. Why don't you highlight exclamation also, Lynn? Just
Can I
so,
ask a quick question?
Mhm.
Has it happened in the past, or just for my information being newer, that somebody has made a donation that then went to another team and the team said, we don't want this, and then does that happen? Or, I mean, I'm assuming that monetary donations are never looked down upon. So is this more an issue of material things that we need or don't need? And
Yeah, we've had a few occasions where, for example, sometimes, somebody has left us their storage shed. Or wanted to donate a flagpole, or there was a big piece of a sculpture that was really an sort of outdoor sculpture, I think, or maybe a giant indoor sculpture, but there was a team that accepted it and was going to put it in the memorial garden, and it really just didn't have a place. And so in those cases, in that case, it was a team that accepted it without going through anybody, and it caused problems. And then in some cases, there were members that were wanting to donate something that we had to say, thank you, but no. And so we've had to create policy around it, so we know who and how to make those decisions.
okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay. So we'll look at that one a little bit more. Good. How are we doing time wise? Anybody?
we're about 7:45.
Okay.
Um, so here we've added just something we just talked about. Actually, according to the best management practices for a large body of members, is when they hold their annual meeting, they should set the next date for the next annual meeting. And it would be helpful for planning, as you could see from our discussion about an hour ago, to have known when that next meeting was going to be. And so that everybody would know that it would be in the minutes. So we've just added sub paragraph or subline I to indicate that one of the things in an annual meeting is to establish the next annual meeting date.
The other thing that was super important about this, Tom, was the membership. Remember, the new members having that date established so they know whether or not they're going to be able to vote in that annual meeting based on when the spring new member new membership onboarding occurs, or however you want to say that.
Yeah,
So-
because this is the new members that are signing, that are going to sign the book or become officially members won't have met the 90-day requirement. And if we'd have known when the meeting was going to be in June of 2023, then they could have planned when the membership, would have occurred, and they would have had their 90 days. So it's just an effort to try to make that as something to plan around rather than to plan at the last minute like we kind of did today.
Okay,
Uh,
Article 7.
Yeah, here it's something about the board. We're adding policies and procedures, and unlike eliminating them in the past, because this is an appropriate place where the board should have some authority to do these things, and making sure that there isn't an issue with the ministerial agreement ending up being in conflict with anything. So we wanted to have it clear there that the board would review any bylaws and policy and procedures to make sure there is no conflict with the ministerial agreement, which is a contract that would have to be, otherwise have to be modified by both parties, a minister and the board. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, this is just kind of a word thing. The way I read before was that the board shall stipulate its policies and procedures the manner in which a budget shall be adopted by the congregation. Well, they can't do that, but what the board does is to present, the bylaws will say they're supposed to present to the congregation a budget, and not to be intimately involved in the budget development.
Well, where does the budget summit then come into this? Because anybody can attend the budget summit, right?
Right.
Beforehand.
We may need to look at that, Lynn. I don't have the policies and procedures that we propose in front of them, but certainly the purpose of the budget summit is to be open to everybody in the congregation to get involved in.
Right.
So, but I don't know if that needs to be in the bylaws, as long as the board has it in their policies that they're going to make sure that there'll be something like a budget summit or equivalent that would take place.
Okay.
Maybe that's something I'll put a note next to that one so that we make sure that that it is in I'm writing down my notes on my hard copy. So that there is something in there that assures that the board will make sure that it's part of the process that the congregation be involved in preparation of the budget. This is kind of again, we're adding words about the bylaws and the end statements and policies and procedures. That the board is not intimately involved in fundraising or pledging effort. In other words, you guys should not be expected to be calling on people, but rather clarifies that the role of the board is to ensure that this kind of thing happens. That would be more in line with a policy, and take you out of an administrative task role and simply being in a role of saying, this has to happen and we're going to ensure that it does. Hopefully that's what that says. That was our intent.
This is just removing stuff from the policies and procedure, or removing policies and procedures. We don't need it anymore.
Okay.
Sorry, Tom.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was looking at something else on my handwritten notes, so good. Regarding the ministers, let's see, section 2, what we're just restating section 1, but section 2, we're recommending be struck out altogether because it's adequately addressed in the previous article 7, and therefore isn't necessary. It's kind of a duplication. Then we would simply be renumbering the rest of the sections in this article.
You want me to scroll back up, anybody? That's the one we talked about up here. Here. Okay,
And they have a copy of this, Lynn, right?
no, not yet.
Oh, well, probably should send that out so that anybody, can absorb it in their own time and place and,
Absolutely. I thought I would send it out after this, any notes we have, and maybe after tomorrow's meeting. I'll send it to you so you have a whole month to be.
yeah.
Yep.
And we do have enough time because we're doing this early enough that we can massage this and work with it for at least the next board meeting. And then the endowment team, what we're doing essentially here, the only elected positions are the board or the trustees and the nominating team, and each of them have in the bylaws a framework for how they would be, what the length of terms would be, and how they would do appointments for vacated positions. And the endowment team has these kinds of policies, but they're internalized. And what we did here with the approval of the endowment team was we actually formulated their policies into a new section 3, and then would renumber from there on down. So essentially this, the endowment team met last week, and they got back to us right after their meeting saying, this is okay to have it in the bylaws. And they in fact do all this already.
Strangely, they were the only team that has these rotating positions that was not included in the bylaws, like all the other, like the boards is, the nominating teams terms is in the bylaws. The operations teams terms, personnel teams terms, those are all in the bylaws, but the endowment teams was not. So we're recommending that it's just consistent.
And then this is the one that will probably make for sure a separate, it'd be a separate motion, because we're doing something here that already the bylaws state, as it's there in black, that any member may propose an amendment to the Articles of Incorporation or these bylaws only if proposed amendments have been previously submitted to the board 4 weeks prior to the meeting. So what we're adding is the idea that there's a reason for the 4 weeks, and that's in the last sentence. It's for the purpose of the board or board designated persons, could be a subcommittee of the board, to examine the amendment for continuity with the existing governance documents. In other words, the minister's contract or agreement, the policies and procedures, and the bylaws, to make sure that if we tinker with one piece, that we aren't affecting other portions of the bylaws or in conflict with something that's in the policies and procedures, or that's something in the ministerial agreement. And then this is the part that's right now. It does say in black that any member may propose an amendment. But for the last two or three, at least the last meeting, if not two or three other meetings over the years, one or two persons have an amendment in mind, and they are allowed to bring it up. And then there could be a discussion about it that could go on for a long period of time, although we now, there's a Robert's Rule of Order way to shut off that. And therefore, one or two people could monopolize a substantial amount of a congregational meeting. And as was the case last year, when it actually came to a vote, there were only less than half a dozen people in favor of the motion, and there's 100 people sitting there. So what this is saying is, if you have an amendment, find 10 other people or 9 other people, at least 9 other people who have support for what one is suggesting. And that's where it says submitted to the board, and it's accompanied by at least 10 supporting signatures or emails with regard to the specific amendment. And even if that amendment is modified because it overlapped and was inconsistent or whatever, and it's reworded, they would still have to get a support of at least 10 supporting members. So that's a pretty radical change. It's perfectly all right to have in your bylaws, as long as the bylaw is approved that says that. But, and all the bylaw amendments take a 2/3 approval of those present.
We originally thought 25 people. But we don't want to make it hard for people, but we want people to, I mean, it could be hard. It can be hard to find, it's certainly hard to find 25 people at church to say, because there will be some people that will disagree with them. But to have the support of 10 people does not seem unreasonable to bring forth something that is going to be a conversation for the entire church. That doesn't seem unreasonable to me, but I'd love to hear what others think.
I agree with that. The thing that kind of sticks out for me, though, is that 4 weeks might not be enough time for whatever board meeting happened to take place, and then figuring out, where could there be conflicts in the other bylaws or in the ministerial agreement. Is 4 weeks long enough?
4 weeks is already there. That's part of
Okay.
our bylaws now. We wrote that last year.
Okay,
But, it could be reconsidered, because we're focusing on things last year was a huge revised, totally rewritten, and now we're down to picking at the details. So maybe you all need to discuss whether 4 weeks is adequate.
I think 4 weeks is adequate. If we have, it's actually then 6 weeks right before the annual meeting, because we have to have things out 2 weeks before.
Well, it says 4 weeks prior to the meeting date, no. So like you've got June 4th set for a meeting, so somebody would have to have something in there at least 4 weeks prior to that, which would effectively be the 5th of May.
I think that should be. I think asking people to do much more than that is asking a lot. People don't think about the bylaws until it's like, oh, this is really coming up. I better sit down and look at that. I think there was a lot of frustration with that last year, mainly because we did back-to-back meetings so quickly. But
Well, just as a for instance, I knew that a certain member of the church was going to submit a meaningful motion, and fortunately, that person consulted me as a parliamentary advisor. And I said to that person, well, boy, you've got 2 major points in here. You're going to have to separate those into 2 separate motions, because you can't people can't be expected to vote on two major items. They may approve of one and not approve of the other. So we separated the motions, and then I pointed out that the motion were well written anyway. So they had work before they actually, or during the process, they got there, and it worked out, but only because that person knew to come to me and ask me. So one other thing you could do to alleviate that position that, or issue that you just raised, is in the Sun, and maybe even with a special notice, you could put out 6 weeks before the annual meeting that anybody wishing to propose an amendment must do so by a date certain, by the 5th of May. And then that would give the board 4 weeks to work on it, would give those other persons 2 weeks to work on an amendment that they'd submit for consideration. So there's a couple ways to handle that.
But now, this does not conflict with any bylaws or around the time frame for giving notice to the congregation about what the business of the board will be?
Well, yes and no. Just using these dates, the meeting's going to be June 4th. The 4 weeks would be, I think, the 5th of May. And the notice has to go out a minimum of 14 days before June 4th. So effectively, it's only giving, giving 2 weeks to work with an amendment. If it's a perfect amendment, fine, we just publish it on those 14 days, a minimum of 14 days before the June 4th meeting. But if it was not a perfect amendment, but in the spirit of wanting to have the issue brought before the congregation, if they had 10 people supporting it, probably 6 weeks would be better than 4 weeks, because that would allow a full 4 weeks to work with trying to get it right before you had to publish a notice of it.
Yeah, that's where I was thinking the 4 weeks might be too soon because of having to let the congregation know what was coming up. So I think 6 weeks would be my preference.
It's such a tricky thing because from our perspective, and even just in hearing this conversation, it feels like it puts a lot of onus on the board, right? And a lot of responsibility on the board to make sure somebody is doing somebody else who's bringing something forward, that we make it right for them. And I'm not completely opposed to that, but kind of I am. And from a congregation or a congregant's perspective, this 4 weeks already felt very restrictive to people. So now if we say we want 6 weeks because we're going to help you with stuff and make your bylaw amendment pretty with you or for you or help you or whatever, for some people that will feel even more restrictive.
But it says right there, for the purpose of the board or board designated person to examine the proposed amendment for continuity with existing governance as needed and work with the person proposing the amendment. So that's already committing the board to doing that work by that wording.
Well, that's to maintain consistency and continuity with them amongst the documents. So, right, we could go back to that person and say, no, this doesn't work because it's not consistent with the ministerial agreement, or it's not consistent with the policies or whatever. But it doesn't say we're going to wordsmith and help you separate motions and write your proposed amendment and help you with that. And it would not take 4 weeks. I mean, depending on how many, I guess, we had, but I can't imagine that it would take 4 weeks for us to look at proposed bylaw amendments to make sure that they don't conflict with anything. It's the work of helping somebody that's very time consuming. And that was not the board's. We didn't do that. Tom did that.
Is the main consideration here too, for at the very beginning, it was that last year's annual meeting, there was too much time taken up with one proposed amendment? Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, it was more of that
Actually, it was two, at least two, if not three.
two amendments. You know, it was kind of a strange thing last year, right? We had a preliminary meeting 2 months before in which the congregation said, we don't really want to discuss the bylaws. We've read through them. We've talked to the board about them. We don't want to have a long meeting about them, so we approved them. And then just a few weeks later, we had an annual meeting in which the folks who wanted to talk about it anyway. And it was, you know, really in some cases, three to six people voted in support, or in support of their changes, and everybody else maintained their own, what they'd already previously decided. So it seemed like the congregation spent an awful lot of time wasting their afternoon on something they'd already decided. So that's kind of the issue of wanting people to at least have 10 members that would say, yeah, we think this is serious enough to where we would want to have a discussion during an annual meeting about it. I think this proposal is kind of interesting. I appreciate the heart of it, but you would not have 4 weeks to or whoever proposes it wants to propose a bylaw under this rule, they would not have 4 weeks to make changes. They would only have 2. Right, because it's 4 weeks. So the proposed changes would have to be promoted to the congregation at least 2 weeks in advance of an annual meeting. So they're really only 2 weeks. And then you have the word work in there, which actually does imply that the board would work with the person to perfect it according to the bylaws. So if that's not the intention, I think that line has to change or go, or just to say, to allow them to make necessary changes so that they are consistent, something like that. But I do think you have to decide if 2 weeks is really going to be enough time, not just for the board, but for those who want to propose a bylaw change, to run it by you, consider consider it in terms of the existing documents, and then make changes. If they present it to you exactly 4 weeks before, then they've only got 2 weeks to make those corrections. That might be enough, but I would think more time would help them as much as it would anybody, particularly if the board is not helping them. That gives them a chance to resubmit it and say, how does this look?
Well, let me expand on what you said, Todd, and this is going on longer than we intended, but we are almost through. I wrote this, and I did write in there as needed work with the persons proposing the amendment in an effort to maintain consistency and continuity. And I was also, besides being an author, I was also looking at presiding in a meeting or being a parliamentary advisor, because if we have a crappy motion on the floor because they have submitted it to the board, then the parliamentarian or the presiding officer is going to have to deal with a crappy motion. So my thought was, if we're going to get a motion, let's make it a good motion, regardless of how I feel about it. I would help somebody, as I did before. I didn't agree with the person's proposed motion, but I worked with them to get it so that it was something at least was workable if it got passed. And it was on the floor, it couldn't be contested by somebody else saying, that's a motion that doesn't make any sense, or it's in conflict with this or conflict with that. So we either have to decide not to work with anybody, or if we're going to work with somebody, we need to allow enough time for the board or whoever you appoint. And I think that's what you're saying, Todd.
Yeah. And it may not be something maybe it's something everybody has to think about. I mean, maybe someone has the answer, but it may be this is a good stopping point. You want to think about it, because it seems like there's different goals here that are at odds with each other.
Yeah, and we're almost 10 minutes over. So I think this is a good place to take things up next time, after maybe rewording some of that, because really what we're looking at is that the board would just need to, the board doesn't have to work on it, but the board could say, you need to look at say to the person suggesting it, you need to look at the bylaws and make sure that that's consistent, but this, as this goes, it's not consistent. So we, in a sense, have to approve it going forward by saying it's consistent.
Just also remember that people, if we're asking people to get 10 other people, that means they're gonna have to be real, they need to be starting right now. I
Yeah,
mean, not,
that's true.
I mean, this is not applicable to this year because it's not in the bylaws yet. But the following year, they would, you know, whatever board is going to be, if they're going to adopt that, if we adopt this, next year's board would really need to be saying to people, start gathering your signatures if you're looking for 10 people to change a bylaw with you, because that's gonna take time. And
Yes.
Yeah.
so,
It's just that the 4 weeks is misleading because
Yeah.
it's not really 4 weeks, it's 2 weeks. So it is a short time.
Yeah.
To do much other than to turn it in, right?
Yeah, if it was a perfect amendment and there was no inconsistency, then 2 weeks is fine.
Yeah.
Because it could be checked.
maybe
Yeah.
there should just be something in here that says, about 10 weeks beforehand, call Tom Mosher. See if he's available for your consulting. You start a fee, Tom.
I propose that we adjourn the meeting for tonight. All in favor? Aye. Yeah, we already had 2 people sign off because it's overtime. So thank you, everybody, for being here. And yeah, that was a complex one that we were a little stuck on, but we'll figure it out. Thank you so much.
Dorothy, thank you for your service.
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you for your service, Dorothy.
Yeah. And Lynn and Tom, everybody, thanks. Good night.
Good night, everyone.